Hello, my name is Osman Fire, and it's late, but I want to do this before I forget and before I get too deep into the next book, because it is time to review A Knight of the Word. So yeah, I finished this book, and I've actually already started Angel Fire East, but I really want to talk about this before I started mixing things up between the two books. I really probably wouldn't do that, but I wouldn't have as clear, concise thoughts. Not that I'm going to have clear and concise thoughts now, because I'm kind of tired and it's late. But I still wanted to talk about this before, like, all that got jumbled and mixed up in my brain. So, first things first, another home run. This actually was another great book. I don't remember what I actually originally thought of The Word in the Void when I originally read it. I know I enjoyed it, but I definitely didn't think it was up there with, like, the rest of, like, Terry Brooks' Shannara works. You know, I just thought it was good, you know. I didn't think it was phenomenal, but I think now that I'm older, and especially because having gotten to my 30s now, you know, I've become a lot more adept at recognizing good characters and good characterization. And that's what The Word in the Void brings in spades. The characters are so splendidly written, and they're relatable and they're understandable. You know, it helps a lot that it's set basically in the modern day. I'm not sure when precisely it would be set. I feel distinctly like it's kept vague and nebulous, you know, so there's no, like, direct link to a time frame or whatever, right? But I feel distinctly like Running with the Demon was, like, set in, like, the late 80s, and maybe this is, like, the early 90s. And then maybe Angel Fire East is, like, you know, Angel Fire East is, like, actually, like, set a little bit into the future of when Terry Brooks wrote that book, but I'm not really sure. For all I know, you know, like, Angel Fire East occurs in 99. But anyway, but you know, you can feel the time frame, though. Especially in Running with the Demon, there's so many references to just things like Coca-Cola and I don't even know. This book even referenced, what did this book reference? It referenced Starbucks. And, you know, mind you, Starbucks has kind of become a thing really in the past, like, decade and a half, I feel like. But I'm trying to think, did Starbucks start in Seattle? Because this mentions Starbucks, and mind you, this book was written in 98. And, I mean, granted, I was young then, and I've never been a big coffee fan. So, I mean, if Starbucks was kind of sort of, like, low-key, it definitely wasn't a high-key thing, but it was kind of sort of a low-key thing back then, do let me know. But no, it mentioned Starbucks, and that caught me off guard, because I'm like, wait, this was written the better part of, you know, like, this was written almost 25 years ago, and I just kind of, like, caught me off guard. But no, this is actually a really phenomenal book. I love the character work with John Ross and Nest Freemark again, and I like the mystery. Now, when I started reading the book, my brain immediately clicked on the fact that, I'm like, wait a minute, I remember this. Wasn't Stephanie Winslow, his, you know, John Ross's girlfriend, significant other? Wasn't she the demon? And I was completely correct. I was completely correct. She, you know, like, she had infiltrated John Ross. But reading it again, I found myself very engaged by the fact that, and it's very subtle, I found myself very engaged by the fact that the book does subtly hint that it's Steph the entire time. Like, Terry Brooks tries his damnedest to keep you from knowing it's Steph the whole time. Maybe it tries a little too hard towards the end, too. Because, I mean, if you haven't figured out that it's not Simon Lawrence by that point, then you're not paying attention. But I feel like the biggest hint, and this is, like, half touched on by Nest in the in this book, but the hint actually comes from the previous book. Because in the previous book, in Running with the Demon, we get an example of obsession in the form of Nest's father, the demon, from that book. And we get an example of true devoted love from old Bob, her grandfather, towards Evelyn. Even though, because in that book, even though like their marriage has kind of like it hasn't fractured, but their marriage is strained. You know, it's kind of like the marriage ever since their daughter Caitlin died. You know, their marriage has been basically held together with a rope that has been pulled taut and is fraying because the weight on the end of the rope is too much. You know, and it's slowly stretching them and slowly stretched them too thin over the years. You know? But old Bob still loves Evelyn, and Evelyn still loves old Bob. And old Bob is devoted to Evelyn. And you see that example of love, but then you see the example of obsession, and juxtaposed against one another, it all becomes like a lot more relevant in this book, because the example of love versus obsession, like I said, it's very subtle, but it hints at Steph being the demon, because the demon, based on the Sylvan Boot from Lincoln Park in Seattle, the Sylvan Boot is I just realized I haven't really been looking at the camera because I was so like engrossed in what I'm saying. But the Sylvan Boot is, talks about how the demon when it meets with the other demon that it eventually kills, Steph eventually kills, how obsessed with John Ross the demon is. And by that point, we've met basically everyone in John Ross's life, everyone from Fresh Start, Simon Lawrence, and everyone on down. And there's only one person in John Ross's life who is even remotely that obsessed with him. Because it's an unhealthy obsession, it's kind of disturbing and almost a little creepy, even in the final confrontation when John confronts her and it's like, and she proposes, and you could tell it's almost sincere, and you could tell it's kind of sincere that John can have his cake and eat it too, you can be a knight and you can have me, and they both know that's not possible, but at the same time, that's the level of obsession that Stephanie Winslow has degenerated to. And you could see it too, like in their first meeting, where she's waiting for John to talk to her, and the way she seems to follow John around all the time, and and the way she behaves, even though a lot of it seems like devoted love, there's an inkling that something's not right about it from the outset. And I thought that was just really good writing. And I wanted to talk about that because I thought it was such good writing. Because it's not in your face, it doesn't slap you, it doesn't, it's not anything harmful to the narrative. It's just really, really sharply written, and I love that. I really love that. I like the whole concept of John Ross accidentally being in bed with his enemy. It's really fantastic. And something else that's fantastic is the fallen hero aspect of it, of John Ross losing his way. I know I'm going to bring it up again, as almost inevitable 5 years later, but I'm reminded of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, and more precisely how that story does it wrong. Because in this story, John Ross is emotionally devastated by his failure to save the kids at Sansabel, the elementary school. He's devastated by that failure, and it's entirely understandable to be devastated by failure. It's entirely understandable he loses faith to a failure like that, even though everyone, Ola Shamana and everyone points out that it wasn't your fault, John. Like, you're not going to win every battle, and you just got outfoxed. You're not. It's not like you made some sort of terrible mistake. It was just a minor error. It wasn't a minor. He didn't make a mistake. He just got outsmarted. I'm reminded of that quote that I love from Star Trek, where Captain Picard tells Data, "It is entirely possible to make no mistakes and still lose. That is not weakness, that is life." And that is the lesson here that John Ross kind of needed to learn. He needed to learn that it's possible to make no mistakes and still lose. But it's still understandable that he'd be shattered by that. But the thing is that even though he gets broken by the events at Sansabel, he doesn't stop being John Ross. He doesn't stop being a noble man, trying to do good, trying to do the best with his life. Whether he's a Knight of the Word or a employee at Fresh Start, John Ross is trying to be John Ross. And I got reminded of Luke Skywalker from The Last Jedi, because the underlying problem with that narrative is the simple fact that Luke Skywalker stopped being Luke Skywalker because of his failure. In addition to the fact that his failure wasn't like a Luke Skywalker. There's something crawling in the corner over there, and it's just distracting me. But even though Luke Skywalker, Luke Skywalker, first of all, made a mistake that just doesn't make sense, trying to murder his nephew, even on impulse, seeing dark visions of the future. It doesn't make sense that he would reflexively try to murder his nephew, If he literally saved the most evil man in the galaxy on faith that because they were related by blood, it could turn him, then he's not going to try and murder his nephew based on a what if. But on top of that, leaving that aside, even if Luke Skywalker fails in that regard, and it breaks Luke Skywalker still shouldn't have stopped being Luke Skywalker, because that's what he does. Luke Skywalker stops, fighting for his family and for his friends and for the cause that he spent decades fighting for. He just stops. And, if Rian Johnson is smart, he would have taken a little bit of pointers from the author of the novelization of The Phantom Menace. Because this is how you write a hero who has lost his way. This is how you write a hero who has lost his faith and has lost his determination. You don't completely flip their character on their head and turn them into someone they never were, and really would never turn into without, a lot of things cascading. If anything, it feels like more things went wrong for John Ross than went for Luke Skywalker. But it's but it's one of those things where it's just if a character's gonna break, so utterly that they become basically the opposite of what they were, multiple things have to happen in their life. Multiple things have to hit them at once or hit them in rapid succession. It's not just going to be kind of like how Steph was planning on subverting John Ross. She was going to start him down the dark path by having him murder Simon Lawrence, and that was going to spiral. That was what would turn him evil. It wasn't going to be the one act of murdering Simon Lawrence in cold blood, but it was going to be start with Simon Lawrence and then slowly push him down that path until finally he's a creature of the void. That's what it would be. One event doesn't completely change a person. Usually, unless that event's super, super, super traumatic. And when I say super traumatic, I mean you witness a massacre, or, and even then, it all depends, I think it all depends on circumstances and the kind of circumstances and whatnot, but yeah, I thought it was just an interesting thing to think about, an interesting parallel, because I think I said it when I reviewed The Last Jedi, but the idea of a fallen hero story is a good one. It's a very good one. It's very interesting to explore the different part of a person's psyche when they encounter failure or they make a mistake. It's interesting to see how they react and how they feel about it. And this was a great exploration of that. Generally speaking, though, I also really like the conciseness of the story. The story occurs over 3 days? 4 days. It occurs over 4 days. into Halloween, and I like how, like, half the story is basically spent with John Ross and Nest Freemark basically being super reluctant to try and do anything about anything, because they're like, do I really feel this? Is this really a good idea? The lady is being really quiet about this, be secretive about this. There's something else going on. I don't know. What do we do here? You know, I like how much of it is literally them being indecisive because they don't know what's really coming. You know, I think that's, yeah, I think that's just a nice little touch. It's one of those. It's like I said, the characters are good, and there's a nice human touch. You know, it's one of those things where, in the face of an unknown divine purpose, they're like, until things finally kind of sort of come to a head, and it turns, you know, and it completely flips their determination to do stuff, you know, how they're going to approach the problem in the situation. You know, and also I like Nest Freemark. I like her character growth. I like her development. I like how things changed for her. I mean, I don't, you know, it's actually kind of, what happens to Nest is actually kind of depressing, because right before she goes off to university, old Bob dies, you know, has a heart attack. Right at the end of her senior year of high school, her best friend Cass Minter dies. You know, we find out that Brianna and Jared had moved away after that summer in Running with the Demon, you know, so basically her world shrank. The only person who's basically left is Robert Hepler, and Robert Hepler is awkward as shit. You know, literally they're in a position where they're very they're in this position where they're in an awkward position in their friendship, because, as Nest says very bluntly to Robert, he groped her at her grandfather's funeral. And I know I'm laughing, but obviously it wasn't anything so serious. Mostly the biggest problem is that he ran away in terror because he went too far, you know, probably trying to like comfort her or whatever, and went too far, and, you know, and he ran away in fear from Nest. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm very mad at this book, because once again I find myself relating to a character in a negative way, just like I related to John Ross's loneliness in the last book. Now I relate to Robert Hepler's awkwardness and being hopelessly in love with his best friend aspect in this book. Why? Again, harkens back. Terry Brooks, again, wrote amazing characters here, but why is he gotta call me out? Come on, man. You know, don't do that. You know, then again, I never imagined I would share the same feelings as John Ross or Robert Hepler, and I'm 90% certain Nest Freemark in the next book. 15 years down the line, but here we are. Ha ha ha. I mean, really? Really? But again, it is a testament to his writing by the fact that I can relate so clearly and naturally with the characters that appear in these books. You know? It really is like I said, this book was actually really phenomenal. You know, like I almost feel like even like the broader narrative doesn't matter half as much as the effectiveness of the character work in here. And I really enjoyed it. And I hope that you enjoyed this review, because I'm done. Because it's getting late, and I gotta finish up. And, I mean, I'll release this a few days after this. But anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Check the links in the description below. You know the drill. Check out the music I put in here, and links to Twitch and everything. And I'll catch you next time when I review Angel Fire East. Until next time, everybody.